The courtroom was silent, but the sound of a pen scratching across paper echoed loudly. Daniel Carter leaned back in his chair, a smug smile on his face as he signed the divorce papers. Across the table sat his wife, Emily. She looked calm. Too calm. Daniel chuckled under his breath and shook his head. "You'll never survive without me," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. What he didn't know was that the quiet woman sitting across from him was one of the richest heirs in the world. And in a few minutes, the entire courtroom would find out. But the real surprise wasn't her wealth. It was her kindness. Before we continue this powerful story, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment to support the channel Kindness Lights. Your support helps us share more inspiring stories about humanity, compassion, and unexpected kindness. Now, let's begin. Daniel Carter believed he was a self-made man. He owned a growing construction company in Chicago and loved telling people how he had built everything from the ground up. Confidence wasn't his problem, humility was. 5 years earlier, Daniel met Emily in a small coffee shop. She worked there as a cashier. Her clothes were simple. Her car was old. Her smile was warm. Daniel thought she was charming but assumed she came from nothing. To him, Emily was the perfect woman, beautiful, quiet, and someone who would admire his success. What Daniel never bothered to ask was where Emily came from. Emily Parker was the only granddaughter of Richard Parker, the founder of Parker Global Holdings, an international empire worth trillions. But Emily had grown up differently. Her grandfather believed wealth could change people in the worst ways. So he raised her to live a normal life, away from the spotlight. Emily volunteered at shelters, worked part-time jobs, and believed kindness mattered more than money. When Daniel asked her out, she didn't see a businessman. She saw someone ambitious and energetic. At least, that's what she believed at the time. Their marriage started happily. For the first year, Daniel seemed supportive and proud of Emily's kindness. He even told friends that her humility kept him grounded. But as his company grew, Daniel changed. Success made him impatient. He started criticizing Emily's simple lifestyle. "Why do you still work at that coffee shop?" he once asked. "My wife shouldn't be serving lattes." Emily smiled gently. "Because I like helping people." Daniel rolled his eyes. To him, kindness didn't build empires. Money did. The arguments slowly increased. Daniel wanted Emily to become someone else, someone glamorous who could impress his wealthy business partners. Emily refused to pretend. She continued volunteering at community centers and quietly donating her time to people who needed help. One evening Daniel snapped during a dinner party. "You act like you're some saint," he said sharply. "But you contribute nothing to this family." The room went silent. Emily's eyes filled with hurt, but she didn't argue. She simply whispered, "Kindness is never nothing, Daniel." But Daniel laughed. That night, something inside Emily broke. Months later, Daniel filed for divorce. He told his lawyers Emily had no assets and no influence. The case would be simple. In fact, he joked about it with his friends. "She'll probably ask for half my money," he laughed. Good luck to her. The day of the hearing finally arrived. Daniel walked into the courtroom confident and relaxed. Emily arrived alone, wearing a simple cream-colored suit. She looked peaceful. Daniel smirked. "Ready to start over?" he whispered mockingly. Emily just nodded politely. The judge began reviewing the documents. Daniel grabbed the pen and signed the divorce papers quickly. Then he slid them across the table toward Emily. "Well," he said loudly, "good luck paying your rent now." Several people in the courtroom shifted uncomfortably. Emily picked up the pen. She signed her name calmly. But before the judge could finalize the documents, the courtroom doors opened. 2 lawyers in expensive suits walked in, followed by an older man with silver hair. The room immediately grew quiet. Daniel frowned. "Who are they?" he whispered. Emily looked up gently. "My legal team." Daniel blinked. "What?" One of the lawyers stepped forward and placed several thick folders on the table. "Your Honor," he said calmly, "we represent Ms. Emily Parker, primary heir to Parker Global Holdings." The judge's eyebrows lifted. Daniel laughed awkwardly. "Wait, what?" The lawyer continued. "Ms. Parker is the majority beneficiary of an estate currently valued at approximately $1.3 trillion. The courtroom gasped. Daniel's smile vanished. His face turned pale. He looked at Emily like he was seeing her for the first time. You're joking." Emily shook her head softly. "No, Daniel." Her grandfather stepped forward and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "I wanted Emily to marry someone who loved her for who she was," the old man said calmly. "Not for money." Daniel's hands began to tremble. You never told me." Emily looked at him with sad but kind eyes. "You never asked." The judge adjusted his glasses. "Mr. Carter," he said slowly, "according to the prenuptial agreement filed by Ms. Parker's attorneys, all Parker family assets remain separate property." Daniel felt his stomach drop. That meant something worse. Emily hadn't been after his money. She never needed it. And he had just mocked a woman who owned more